Hi everyone. I think we'll just begin. It's 1 minute past. So my name is Adele, and I am part of the team with A1 Momentum. So we're just really happy to welcome you to today's webinar, which is from guidance to practice implementing optimal handed care. And this webinar is in partnership with RoSPA today. So we have Nick Leva here from RoSPA, who you will listen to and meet later. So we just want to thank you for being with us today, and we just want to let you know that this webinar is being recorded at the minute. It will be a panel discussion, but it will be recorded and the link will be sent out with post-webinar emails if you've registered. So let anyone know that you may know that they maybe haven't been able to join us today, or maybe have to drop off early. It will be recorded and it will be sent to your email as long as you have registered today. So I just want to thank you for being here again. And there will be a Q&A at the end. So please pop any questions you do have in through the chat or in the Q&A box at the top, and then I'll run through them with the panel at the end. So yeah, just want to welcome you all. I'll hand over to Norma and she will do a proper introduction of everyone. And yeah, thank you all for being here and I hope you enjoy.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm just going to share screen now. You should all be able to see my screen. I'm just going to check in. Thumbs up, yep. Yeah, perfect, thank you. I am particularly grateful to everyone joining. I believe that this is half term. I should know this, and therefore we have many people who have asked for a recording, which is perfect. As Adele said, we'll send that to you. So today I am so grateful to be joined by Kat Stafford, who's one of our associates and also has direct experience of implementing proportional or optimal handed care. And we have Nick Eva, who is the external quality assurer for RoSPA and is a huge help for us in making sure that we comply with all our regulated and also our restricted courses, but we'll come on to discuss that as the time goes on. So today's session is honing in on the implementation of the high impact change model in optimal handed care. This model is so welcomed for many, many reasons, as certainly as a best practice guidance for us. We're delighted. As I say, it is very much a best practice guidance. So it's providing us with that practical framework as well. And we're here today to look at how we can help you also to implement the model. This is not by any manner or means a sales pitch. We are clinicians and we understand the complexities of changes in system. The model does aim to ensure that every person receives that safe and proportionate and independent focused care and support, at the same time reducing the strain on the workforce, which we know is there. We don't have enough care available to meet the need of our ever-growing population, as well as those who are living longer, and really maximising that system's efficiency. So there's so many positives in the development of the model that we welcome. The vision of the model is just to take from it directly here, and the link to the full details of the model are included below there. The statement is it's a fully integrated person-centered model. So our first introduction to the fact that this is all around being person-centered, which is not new to any of us, in which optimal handed care becomes standard practice, delivering the right level of support, the right number of carers at the right time. A shared responsibility of all partners in the system to ensure that people are supported to be as independent for as long as possible. So this really resonates to all of us as healthcare professionals, as occupational therapists, physiotherapists, and whatever our title might be in nursing. This really resonates with us, and there's nothing that should really be unfamiliar to us here. I think, from my experience in 25 years of moving and handling, this is not new practice. However, it is true to say that we, certainly in the last 15 years, we appear to have created somewhat of a dual system. And the duality is this single versus double-handed care. Whereas now the term optimal handed or proportionate care is a welcomed addition for us. So what do we mean by that proportionate? or optimal handed care. You'll see going round that circle there, we have the terms right-sized care, handling with dignity, single-handed care. Across the UK, we work with so many different trusts, local authorities, voluntary organisations, and regardless of the term used, we're all referring to that same person-centred approach based on the right level of care for the individual. So whether we refer to it as proportionate care, optimal handed care, handling with dignity, we're all talking about the same approach. The actual definition taken from the model is a comprehensive assessment of an individual's ability to safely engage in daily activities, making use of assistive equipment where appropriate, and the expectation that care will be delivered in the most proportionate and efficient way possible. So a wonderful definition there, where I don't think there's any issues that we would have with that definition, and it's leaning into that person-centred approach as well, which is based on other best practice guidance. From a people handling point of view, we understand that the manual handling operations regulations is generic across all industries. It's not specific to health. So within health and social care, we look to the National Back Exchange, and we welcomed in 2025, so just the tail end of last year, this quote that I've taken from the Back Exchange says that all training should focus on optimised approach to moving and handling. Optimised handling takes a system-wide approach that focuses not solely about safety and reducing musculoskeletal injury, but also about effective outcomes, including person-centredness, early mobilisation, enablement and reablement, and efficient outcomes, including right-sized packages of care. A welcome statement, especially as traditionally, when we look at that mandatory induction level training, the aim of that training has been to quote, to reduce the risk of musculoskeletal injury through poor moving and handling. Now, that is focusing purely on the handler, but this definition allows us to see the benefits to the person being person-centred, and that risk assessment process that we're focusing on, not just the handler, but the patient or the client, the person that we're supporting. So we're looking at best practice guidance, and this is welcome from the National Back Exchange. But let's look at the challenges. So the model does allow us to do this, which is particularly helpful. So this image looks at the challenges that represent difficulties in implementing proportionate care. I will refer to proportionate care because it's the name of the course that we run, optimal care being the same. When systems are not aligned, that's where we see these challenges occur. So they're all interconnected challenges, and they do mirror the domains which are addressed within the model. So if we look at that lack of accountable leadership, without clear ownership and governance, practice variation and risks can increase. Also, that overuse of double-handed care, so where we will see defaulting to two carers, where one handler would be safe and appropriate, that then limits the independence of the individual, but also increases work for force pressures. There's often the assumption that a second person is going to reduce the risk, and that we know is not always the case, and in fact may add further burdens and complications to the task. Inconsistencies in practice, where we see variations in assessments, risk interpretation, where one person may see low risk, another is seeing high, that where there's inconsistencies, and equipment use leads to inequality and inefficiency. That can be the challenges where the policy directly dictates the number of people, the number of handlers to use a piece of equipment. So that's particularly challenging, and ultimately has led to many of the organisations we support having to change that policy. It's our experience that it's often those powered pieces of equipment that come with a caveat of requiring two people, and that needs to be reviewed. So one of the other challenges there is data and evidence gap. So without having that reliable data, systems can't be measured, or their impact, the positive impact they're having, or we can't track the outcomes or drive improvements. So that's one of the challenges of implementing the model. Limited digital integration, so poor information sharing across health and social care, that can disrupt that continuity and slow decision making. Or we also see a limited integration across care and community services. We can see fragmented pathways, so where we're not potentially communicating with those paid agencies or potentially voluntary sectors as well. This model does highlight why a whole system alignment is necessary. So the challenges are there, and where we can overcome that by having a whole system alignment. And when these elements are addressed collectively, rather than in isolation, we can see that we can reduce care considerably and see improved outcomes, improved independence. One of the key focus is on system leadership and culture. I'll mention that when I look briefly at the courses that we represent, and that cultural change for some, not all, because across the UK the picture varies greatly. There are some further on their journey to implementing the model than others. But what we know is proportionate handling being framed as good practice rather than a blanket reduced care is welcome. So this is good practice guidance. And staff are supported to use their clinical judgments rather than just defaulted routines or historic practices. And this is a visual representation of the model. It's the fact that at the heart of it is that strategic alignment. That strategic alignment is very much the model aligns with the major national and strategic priorities. So your NHS 10-year plan, the model underpins the shift from that episodic care to more prevention, rehabilitation and independent living, so supporting longer term health and wellbeing goals. We also have strategic alignment with the Care Act 2014. The model reflects the Care Act's duty to promote wellbeing and independence, and we have the Better Care Fund. So the BCF is the key vehicle for integrated health and social care at local level, and we can see that the model very much promotes and is aligned with that. So at a strategic level, that's very helpful. The model is also really helpful to us by providing key examples and case examples of where they have succeeded. So Hampshire and Isle of Wight, for example. ICS has embedded optimal handed care principles within intermediate care and discharge pathways to support a home first approach. So please look into the model in greater detail to look exactly how they have implemented that. Just briefly to look at that pathway collaboration. Optimal handed care requires seamless integration of responsibilities across health and social care, and not to forget voluntary sectors as well, and also to consider those unpaid or family carers. The case example there is joint OT and therapy reviews across acute and community teams, which are embedded into sharing of moving and handling plans, creating that hospital to home, therefore reducing reducing discharge delays, which is extremely helpful. Workforce upskilling, I'll mention training options, but building confidence and capabilities. So the model implementation emphasises where capability building across the workforce ensures assessors and clinicians and the carers have the skills and confidence needed, which we know is extremely helpful. And there's a case example there where there were over 150 prescribers trained with 1,500 staff upskilled, including demonstration videos, which we would always recommend, and practical resources as a help there. The data-driven implementation there, measuring what matters. So this is a conversation we have with many leaders and strategic implementation officers, where they're looking at what are we actually trying to capture? Do we have therapy outcome measures that we can pull before we're implementing optimal handed care, and then we can review that, because this is what we're measuring against, that improvement, and having a benchmark to improve, to see improvements. having that outcomes and impact, whether it be safety, experience and value. Optimal handed care builds safer systems. There's great case examples there of system data showed a 39% conversion rate to reduce care needs, enabling people to regain that independence. Also 8,621 bed days were saved. And for all of us to hear that there was such a positive patient and family feedback, ultimately that's where we see the improvement there. But there are learnings to be learned along the way. The model allows us to consider that from continuous improvement, embedding optimal handed care at scale. It uncovers practical challenges, but offers an ability to learn from the systems and improve, and certainly learn from others as well. So these case studies are really helpful in that. And then obviously recommendations for success. So systems with strong leadership supports business intelligence and capabilities with mechanisms to support that. We then look at the key benefits. We've mentioned being person-centered. We have also included that improved independence and dignity, improved physical and mental well-being. That's something that probably needs more of a longitudinal study once we see outcomes being measured, but certainly from a mental well-being and physical well-being in the longer term, potential long-term benefits, and also better adherence to treatment and care plans, as well as faster recovery and reduced dependency. So great benefits we see there. With regards to actual implementation, the model does give an implementation system, if you like. So phase one in that is around the foundation for scale. We've said it once, we'll say it again, it's around that securing leadership. Phase two is testing for scale. Please do read this in detail in the model, because I will need to hand over to my colleagues, but do spend some time reading into this. But the testing for scale very much aligns with the model's emphasis on workforce capability, consistency of practice, and data-driven learning before a wider rollout. And then phase three is that achieving scale. So very, very helpful there in how to achieve that. From a practical and how we can assist within that, we do have a level 4 proportionate handling training. Now, this is a RoSPA course. This is actually the only regulated, accredited course. So it is Ofqual regulated, and the Ofqual course is a 3-day course. The first day focuses on that cultural change. So we acknowledge that there are some, as I've mentioned, who are potentially at the beginning of their journey and need to look at cultural change and evidence-based practice. Day 2 and day 3 allows full immersion within the practical skills to gain confidence to be able to implement it within your organisation. Acknowledging that some of the individuals also need to then teach others, we've added on deliberately a teach module, a trainer's assessors module, so that you can be a trainer then delivering that proportionate care course. So if you need any more information, as I say, we are the only people who are offering a regulated course which is able to meet that need. But we are here to support the implementation of the model because we support it in full. With regards to the rest of the team and those carers that we're supporting, what is then needed is potentially that level 2 award. And we are also a RoSPA centre who are able to deliver that level 2. However, we welcome the fact that this is going to be able to be delivered across the UK at scale. And I will hand over to Nick, who is able to give us more detailed information on that. So I'm going to just stop sharing my screen and I will ask Nick to come in at this stage, if that's okay, Nick.
Yeah, of course. Let me just make sure the technology is going to work for me. So I'm hoping that everybody can now see a slide from RoSPA qualifications. I'm seeing some nodding, so I'm hoping that's a good sign. I'm just going to go through sort of how regulated training supports individuals, teams and organisations to implement practice guidance consistently and sustainably. So as Norma very kindly said, we do have a level 2 award. So again, it is a regulated qualification. The level 2 award in proportionate single-handed care practice. So it is Ofqual regulated. It does sit on the Ofqual register, and the qualification number is on the screen for you there. It was developed by RoSPA, but it was not only developed by RoSPA, it was developed in conjunction with A1 Momentum and key stakeholders as well. So that is one of the benefits of a regulated award, is regulated awards involve multiple stakeholders when they're put together. So there's a great wealth of knowledge and experience that goes into creating a regulated award. And this particular award is supported by Care England and Skills for Care. So that's just a little bit about the level 2. And as we were saying, some of the benefits of sort of regulated training, because there has been that wealth of stakeholders, wealth of knowledge, wealth of experience that has gone into creating the level 2 proportionate care course. We know that that course is going to follow current best practice, and it also then meets regulatory standards. So as I'm sure many of you are aware, Ofqual have regulations that we have to adhere to and to follow. So we know Ofqual have to sign off on any of our regulated courses. So you know that if it's on the Ofqual register, it meets those regulatory standards. And by having these regulated courses that meet these standards, what we're aiming to achieve is to build not only staff competence, but also staff confidence as well, because there is a difference between competence and confidence. Enabling individuals to deliver safer and consistent person-centred care. Again, it's all about person-centred care that promotes privacy, independence and flexibility, but at the same time not compromising on health, safety and well-being of either party. So if we break it down a little bit, so looking at care teams, so a care team will benefit by being able to sort of share skills, having what we refer to as a standardized approach. So, you know, everyone within the team is all using the same approach within the team. And hopefully improving communication, particularly around things like handling plans and risk assessments. And then thinking about the organisation as a whole, the organisation will benefit from regulated awards through hopefully efficiency improvements, as Norma rightly mentioned, reduced delays and sustainable evidence-based care models. And those care models should then hopefully be suitable for multi-site rollout. So regulated awards are designed to be suitable for lots of different sites. So if an organisation has got different sites within the organisation, the regulated award should be suitable for each site. And then again, it comes back to that standardised approach, so that the organisation knows that all staff and all teams are going to be working to the same standards. So having a think now about how structured education and workforce development can drive measurable improvements in care quality. So within our level 2 award, we have what we like to refer to as the pillars of proportionate care. And these, again, very much align with what Norma's already been saying. Again, that person-centred approach to moving and handling. So putting the individual, the person that's being supported, right in the middle of everything that we do. Ensuring then that we've got the right level of support in the right environment at the right time. And by doing that, what we're trying to do is enhance quality of life. So making sure everything is person-centred, it enhances the quality of life. With a focus on independence, dignity, deconditioning or preventing deconditioning, and also looking at the workforce themselves. So again, using kind of structured education and training, the idea is that will then empower care workers to, so that they're more empowered, but also empower the individual, the person that's being supported as well. Trying to go for more of a collaborative approach. So rather than, care being given to someone, that person is actively involved in their own care. And the overall aim then is to reduce dependency and promote dignity. And what we're hoping that will achieve system-wide is that sort of sustainability. So the whole system is more sustainable, more effective, and more efficient. So again, structured education should hopefully have a benefit in reducing any inconsistencies. So as I talked about before, having that consistent approach across all sites, and also driving system-wide reliability as well. So if you've got that structured education and training, then that, organisations know that the systems in place are going to be reliable. And that hopefully, the more education we can give people, then hopefully that will result in better resource allocation or more efficient use of resources. And ultimately, what we're always trying to achieve is to improve an individual's experience of care. So again, going back to that person-centred approach, we want that individual to have the best experience they possibly can. And as we talked about, empowering both care workers and individuals, improving the problem-solving skills, so that again, people feel, the individual, the person feels more in control of the care that they receive, and the care workers themselves have those problem-solving skills to be able to support people more effectively and more efficiently. By doing that, what we're hoping is that we'll then have sort of increased accountability, and we're going to develop those shared values. So it's both within an organisation and hopefully across lots of different organisations as well. That we want that shared approach, those shared values. As I mentioned before, it's about increasing collaboration. So collaboration with the people that we're supporting, collaboration with the workforce and staff members, and hopefully even collaboration between organisations to get those shared values. And by doing that, by increasing that collaboration, by empowering people within organisations, we're hoping that would then improve workforce engagement, workforce satisfaction, and hopefully staff retention as well. And ultimately, as with any training, we want to encourage reflection. We want people to be looking at quality improvement. How can we make things even better than they are now? So those are some of the benefits. And then just to finish my little section, I've just got a QR code that I'll just leave on the screen for a moment. So this QR code will take you to somewhere where you can get further information about the Level 2 award that RoSPA offers. So I'll just leave that there for a moment. If that's okay, I'll let Kat get herself ready whilst I leave that on the screen for a moment. Let me know when you're ready, Kat.
I'm good, let's go.
Okay, let me just stop sharing my screen for a moment then. Okay, all yours.
Thank you very much. Hi everyone, I am super excited to be here with you all today. Doesn't that sound amazing? Like, we're going to actually put people at the forefront of care. Everyone's going to work together. People are going to feel more valued. It just sounds fantastic. So what I'm going to do now is, bear with me a second. Hopefully. Hopefully you guys can now see my presentation. Can someone say something, because I've lost everyone's faces?
Yep, we can see. Thank you so much.
Fabulous. Thank you, Norma. As Norma said, I am a associate trainer for A1, and one of the courses that I deliver is the Proportionate Handed Care course. So we've talked a lot, well, Norma and Nick have talked a lot about all the information that's come out and the best guidance practice. And so my kind of role here today is to talk to you guys about my experience of it. And I thought the best way to share that with you guys would be to first off go through some frequently asked questions that I get when I'm delivering the proportionate handed care, because it does sound wonderful and lovely, and it'd be great if it was just that simple, right? So I'm hopefully going to just talk through some different scenarios and how I think challenges can be overcome. So the first question I get almost every time I deliver this training is, how safe actually is optimal handed care? And the reason I get asked this question first almost every time is usually goes back to concerns around the safety of single-handed care specifically. But just to reiterate what Norma's been saying, optimal handed care isn't necessarily single-handed care. It is the right care at the right time with the right equipment. Single-handed and optimal care are both very safe when it's assessed for with a holistic, person-centered view. So how do we do that? Well, I love risk assessments, which I know seem a bit strange to most, but they have supported me in my clinical reasoning so many different times, to support people to achieve what they want to do in the way that they want to get there. So risk assessments are one of your best friends, and if they're done properly with a holistic approach, they will almost make the decisions around safety for you. They can come in many forms. The moving and handling risk assessment is essential. And the tile approach, which is used within the moving and handling risk assessment, which is task, individual capabilities, load and environment, helps to keep the focus on all elements, including the person, when considering an aspect of moving and handling and how much care is required. There are additional tools that can support your risk assessment, such as BORG and the mobility assessment tool, which we do go through when we deliver the proportionate handed care course. When you're prescribing equipment, you wouldn't see someone who can do an excellent sit to stand transfer with a motor lift, for example, and then prescribe them a hoist anyway, as it's safer and it will reduce the risk of falls. So why would you prescribe more than one carer for someone when they're managing well with support of only one person? Care is as much a part of the prescription as equipment is and should be considered holistically. Introduction of additional carers or equipment when they're not required could in fact increase the risks. So enablement and client participation is the name of the game. Less is sometimes more. So one of the other questions I get asked is, what about people who are variable or complex? Again, a really common question, and it links back to the previous slide really well. When considering someone as a person rather than a condition, we really open our minds up to out-of-the-box, person-centered thinking, rather than the silo or blanket approach. It can be really easy to get dragged into that silo blanket approach in the high-paced, stressful environments we often work in. We could consider if they're variable, would something like the MAT tool be helpful to determine if there's a pattern? So the equipment and care can be pattern to match. Often we will meet people who require more support in a morning or evening due to pain, fatigue or stiffness, for example. Does that mean that they are less able during the day though? Would two carers and some equipment meet their needs in the morning, but just one carer and maybe less equipment in the day? Or even are carers and equipment required at all? People with complex moving and handling needs is a subjective concept, I think. Since I started working as an OT, patients have always been complex, and I will continue to meet people who have complex needs until I retire. Because as I've broadened my learning and supported people, I found the next patient who is similar, I wouldn't necessarily consider them complex because I've got the tools to support them from my previous experience. But also, anyone that knows me knows I love a good webinar, a training day, time with reps to learn about new products. And the key here is knowledge. If you can fill your brains with as much as you can, because it will stay in there somewhere and you might not use it for a little while, but then someone will come along and you'll think, oh, that chair worked really well for a similar patient. Let's give it a try. And I know you're thinking, but I just can't get non-standard stock in easily. I know in my heart that feeling. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a bit of a slog sometimes. It's going to be a long process, but that is where my risk assessments have served me really, really well. Demonstrating a lower risk with something that isn't standard stock should support purchase. And if you aren't successful, you have the clinical justification that will back you up if needed. So don't be disheartened if you're not successful every time. You do just need to keep going. So another question I get a lot is, I don't feel competent, or I'm concerned about the competency of carers delivering the care. So we have lots of legislation to back us up with this. We've got the Health and Safety at Work Act, the Management of Health and Safety at Work regulations, manual handling operations regulations. They all support that any person completing a moving and handling task must have received the appropriate training to do so. It is as simple as, if you haven't been trained to complete a manoeuvre, you should not attempt to do so. If you have been trained but you don't feel like you are competent, maybe it's not something you do every day and have lost the confidence, then what can you do? You can raise this with your supervisor or manager. It may be that they will come out on a visit with you, or a colleague who does feel competent can come out with you to support and remind you of the techniques. But also, what if you observe poor practice? This can be super tricky. I've been in a lot of care homes and people's own homes where I've observed a carer complete a moving and handling technique. My brain's done a little squeak for the future of their backs, and sometimes for the safety of them and the patient. How we communicate is so important. Carers are essential, integral, and a hugely important part of this process. They're time poor and often, in my experience, can feel intimidated by professionals. I actually recently delivered some training, and the group stated frequently how nervous they were because I was watching them and they wanted to get it right. And I said to them, well, this is exactly how carers feel when we turn up to their calls. We need to approach the situation with kindness and respect. And of course, if your concerns are sufficient that you believe safety is a risk, then intervene and raise it directly with their supervisor. Another one that comes up every time I do the course, there are policies in place which challenge how I can implement optimal care. So blanket policies are not best practice. They take away the human element of how we approach and support people, yet we know they are in almost all organisations. For example, you can't support someone from the floor call an ambulance, or you must use 2 people with a hoist. The answers to how you can implement change in this environment really goes back to what I've said in my previous slides. Risk assessment is key and is supported and backed by the legislation already highlighted, but also you've got the Care Act, the Social Services and Wellbeing Act and the Social Care Act. Communication and education is essential. Not everyone has the same level of knowledge about these areas. You wouldn't judge a fish and an elephant comparably on their ability to swim. Approaching this with kindness, respect, and an open mind is needed. Creating a community where knowledge is shared and different views are welcomed and considered. Every organisation wants to put their client first, but every organisation also has several priorities that might not quite match up alongside each other. So some common ground and a safe space to share really helps us to understand each other's perspectives and work together. As Norma talked about, we all need to be in this together for best practice to be implemented. Another one I get is, I'm a really small fish in a big pond, I can't make a difference. I'm a little bit obsessed about fish on this presentation, I've just realised, but we're going to keep going. If all the small fish went in the pond, helping to the overall ecosystem, the pond would quickly become overrun with algae. Every single voice matters, whether you're part of the MDT, external stakeholder, the patient, every single voice is super important. If we don't consider the whole, then it's unlikely that change will be effective. Ways in which you can have your voice heard include using team meetings to do a talk about things that you've learned, raising issues in supervision, just chatting informally with colleagues, using the language with colleagues. If the language is out there, then it's not a surprise when it comes from somewhere else, and that can really help move things along. Asking to attend MDTT meetings, sharing training or webinars you've attended. Consider how optimal care fits into your practice. Will you be still thinking that person's on a hoist, therefore they're going to be 4 times a day double-handed care? Or will you now use the knowledge you have to consider alternatives? Share good news stories and do reflections. So, speaking of reflections, I've just got a couple of examples of when it's gone really well for me and when it hasn't gone well for me. So this one is my first chap. He was a gentleman in his 70s with Parkinson's, and he was usually mobile with a stick. He lived in a bungalow with his wife, who was younger than him and worked part-time. He was admitted to hospital with reduced mobility secondary to a UTI. He spent numerous weeks in hospital. He just kept getting infection after infection. And whilst he was being treated, by the time he was medically optimised for therapy, as they say, he was only on bed care only, and his mood was rock bottom. His goal, whenever I spoke to him, was just to return home. He absolutely did not care what that looked like, how it happened. He just wanted to go home. So I did an optimal care assessment successfully with a view to return home in bed. My plan was that the wife would complete all the care, and then we would potentially have care follow up if she needed to go back to work, but also some rehab for him, because at home his mood was going to be better and he'd be more motivated to engage with rehab. So it was all great. Had all the equipment planned. The wife had a practice. She was super happy. We went back to the ward, and a member of the MDT, on hearing my plan, disagreed with the safety of it in front of the wife, and that immediately changed everything. So that one part of that system that we talk about at the beginning, where we all need to be understanding of the best practice and working together, that one bit broke down for me. And what that ultimately meant was the wife declined to then take him home and do the care. And the gentleman was moved to a community hospital while he was awaiting a double-handed package of care. And unfortunately, he did ultimately end up in a care home. So a little bit sad, that one, but I like to end on a positive. So another lady that I had, she was in her 60s. She had left-sided weakness in her leg and arm following a stroke a couple of years ago. She lived with her husband, who had really, really poor sight, partially blind. They both had a care package in place. Her care package was 4 times a day, double-handed care. So I did an assessment of the morning call, and I identified that she'd only need one carer if she'd agree to switch sides of the bed. But due to the husband's sight difficulties, that wasn't appropriate. And she didn't want to, because she'd spent 60 years sleeping on that side of the bed and she wasn't going to change her mind. So we looked at equipment to support with one carer on the current side. Due to anxiety of falls, equipment was not suitable, and so I actually didn't change the morning call. But I went back to one of the lunchtime calls, and that care call was 2 carers for 30 minutes. And the first carer was making the lunch or the tea, whilst the other was assisting my lady to do a sit-to-stand from her armchair to a rollator, so that she could go to the toilet. I was super lucky at the time to be working in a local authority where we had rise and recline as a standard stock. So I put a rise and recline chair in, and she was completely independent with her sit to stand. So I also made a referral to physiotherapy to try and increase her mobility, bearing in mind that she was now putting a lot more effort into her sit to stands, and reduced the call just to one carer initially. I went back and I reviewed it after a couple of months, and it was going really super well. Her mobility had increased, her anxiety had decreased, because she was now used to, because she had less care going in and because she was moving around more, she believed in herself more. So what I actually did was then we did some kitchen work together, and we got it so that her and her husband supported each other to make a light lunch. So I managed to remove the lunch core completely. And then a further 6 months down the line, I did another review, and the wife at this point, the patient was doing so super well in the house and moving around loads more. That we looked at Wiltshire Farm Foods or a similar, other brands are available, and looked at her and her husband using the microwave and making sure that they could make their tea meal together. So in the end, we had it as one carer for the morning with some equipment, and then just one carer again in the evening, and we completely got rid of the middle calls. But the benefit to her was so super huge in that she was able to do more, and we gave her her purpose back, and she was just really super happy. So that's my positive story. And QR codes are super fashionable now, aren't they? So we do have multiple QR codes, depending on which area you are. These are for WhatsApp groups. So there's a WhatsApp group that focuses on optimal handed care, single hand care, moving with dignity in your area. I won't leave them up for ages because I feel like time is probably pushing on a little. But I will send my PowerPoint through to Adele, who will send it out with the recording, hopefully. So thank you very much. I think that's me done. Let me stop sharing. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was great. I had asked I just popped in the chat if there was any questions, so I'll run through them if everyone is happy enough. Okay, so let me see. So a couple of them were if the slides could be shared. So yeah, that's absolutely no problem. I'll put them into the email that will be sent to yourself later on this afternoon with the link to the webinar, and the copies of the slides will be included in that. So a lot of questions about the cost of the level 2 course and just accessing pricing and further info for the available courses.
Okay, that will depend on who's providing the course. As I mentioned, we are just one of, I believe Nick will have a much better picture of this than I do, but we are one of 4 centres at the moment providing level 2 training, or do we have more?
Yes, so we've got multiple centres at the moment that are providing the level 2 course.
Wonderful. So it really is down to where you're attending. Costs for our courses, please do contact the admin at a1momentum.com. And if for other courses, it would be directly to yourselves, RoSPA, Nick, to get an indication of, or are we able to get that information for the attendees on the other centres that are providing the course? So for example, if it's an area that we're unaware of, if they're providing, if you have a centre there or not.
Yeah, I'm sure we can send that over to yourselves, Norma.
Perfect. Well, that would be super helpful. So if you go to our admin we will be able to give you details of all the level 2 providers. I think we were the first one to deliver the level 2 course, but we welcome more centres being able to deliver that one-day course, because you can imagine we want the uptake to be significantly proportionate to meet the need of the implementation of the model. So yeah, come to ourselves and we will give you either costs on our courses, or we can give you details of all the centres who are providing the level 2 course at the moment. And definitely RoSPA, we welcome conversations with those organisations, trusts, local authorities who may be in a position to become a level 2 centre via RoSPA.
Absolutely. And I believe that you're going to send out a link in the information. So again, there's you can either use the QR code that was in the presentation, or that link, and you can also then get information if any organisations do want to become a RoSPA centre.
Okay, we just see. So there was another. Sorry, someone actually had just commented. Zoe had just said, I'd like to share that she'd recently attended the proportionate care course and it's proved to be very beneficial in the day-to-day practice. She highly recommends it. So that's great. Kate has asked, so one of the main challenges I find in applying this approach is the time taken to do so. For example, the number of revisits with other pressures to visit, assess other individuals. I'd be keen to learn how many visits it had taken you, Kat, to achieve that positive outcome with this lady.
So for the lady that I talked about in my slide just last then, there was my initial visit to change the one call, a second to look at the lunch, third, fourth, maybe 4 visits over around 6 months, that was specifically around making sure she had the right care at the right time with the right equipment. I did do a lot of different other pieces of work with her to try and increase her function and occupation. So I did visit her more in that, but I reckon probably 4 over 6 months that was specific to proportionate care.
Thank you. Another from Jennifer then, there is often pushback from care agencies regarding their own policies for moving and handling. Have you reached out to agencies to advertise optimised handling? Don't really know who that would be directed towards.
Can you, sorry, just the end of that again for me? Was the end of the question?
Sorry. So there's often pushback from care agencies regarding their own policies for moving and handling. Have you reached out to agencies to advertise optimised handling?
Yeah, really, really good question. And that's part of the reason that we very much welcome the model, because to date, this is not changing anything in the legislation. There have never been anything in the legislation which is stated, as we know, 2 people for any mechanical devices, for example. However, at some stage we created these policies. And so what we're able to do now is, because certainly that was my experience for many years, where we were able to provide one handler for a stand aid, for example, or indeed a mobile hoist, the care agency would say, but that's against our policy. And now we can go with the model to say, but this is our best practice guidance. And not only that, we have the National Back Exchange. So best practice guidance and being person-centred is not something that anyone is going to disagree with. And therefore, we're in a much stronger place. I just think, as I said at the beginning, we had almost created a dual system there of, which is never helpful, single against double. But now we're coming together and saying, no, this is proportionate. And actually, we cannot default to those double-handed policies, because that's blanket. And actually, it's my experience within medical legal field would show that any judicial review would not favour a blanket approach. So we don't want to challenge care agencies, but we may have to, and saying that this is best practice. So there are many of the agencies that we work with who are having to review their policies and change them, because their policies do currently state 2 handlers for mechanical aids. Are we approaching them directly? Yep, that's certainly, Adele is our head of clinical marketing, so that's something that she definitely will be looking at, as well as assisting with all the marketing and the other areas. But they are key, they are absolutely key, you're right, in the whole implementation across a system-wide approach.
We just these ones, sorry, quite a few came in there at one time. So we have one, I hope I can read this right. I'm just reading as it comes. So Olwen says, thank you. I find the idea that this approach is not fundamental for all OTs is wild. Everyone is so risk averse now. It's not a training need. We need to go back to our core values, and optimal handed care then becomes just standard practice. Is this shift to this being a training need to implement not concerning for you?
I suppose I have mentioned that, for over 25
Yeah.
years, I would always, and having a training team for many, many years, the whole training team would emphasize that, because I suppose it's only concerning that we've created when I say we, the system has created at some stage that 2 people were required. So we have to then change that culture so that people understand that there are certain myths, there are certain untruths, there are certain beliefs that have been created around moving and handling. And actually, there is nothing. I go back to the legislation to state why, in fact, it would be the opposite. We need to enforce person-centered practice, not just for OTs, and I guess, whilst I would assume that OTs, being that that's my profession, that they would operate in a person-centered approach, that's not my experience. Many, many of my colleagues who are dear friends of mine are very risk averse, and a lot of that does come down to then their training and their understanding, and we will do everything that we can to increase that confidence, support their needs, and make sure that they understand that this person-centered approach is not high risk. Indeed, it's the opposite. Overprescription can be increasing the risk. So yeah, in answer to your question, it is wild, but this is where we find ourselves, and we're just truly grateful that we're able to be part of something that moves in best practice guidance.
Thank you. Another one then. Is there a training opportunity for leadership and management to promote, lead, and implement this model?
Yeah, really good point. So our level 4 is very much, we have many, and thankfully RoSPA have signposted many of those leaders to our courses, who we have some great examples, Nick, don't we, where we've had some leaders who have started day 1 and came with this brick wall. No, this is not for us. We've never been interested in this. And by day 2, the wall is half the size. And then by day 3, the wall is gone and they're ready to go back and really make a positive change in the workforce. And we're really humbled and grateful to be part of that journey, and we can see how the whole of that system will benefit. So that's where the level 4 training is very much for those strategic leaders. I think what I would say is that we are keen, and I've spoken with Nick and Debs at RoSPA, to support the strategic leaderships and bring together, because we work with many large scale trusts and local authorities across the UK, is to bring together those key leaders to support them, because we often find, a bit like Kat was saying, frequently asked questions. Well, if we have answers and we can support that, then we would endeavour to do that. But the level 4 course is definitely appropriate for those leaders.
Perfect. There have been a couple of questions came in about QR codes that maybe aren't in your area. So if that's the case, please email us admin@a1momentum.com, and we can help you find the correct one for your area as well. There's a few others that we have that might work as well. So please contact us anyway, and we will help you with that. Another one then is from Ada. I'm working in the transfer of care team. I liaise with board therapists regarding packages of care for the community. Do you have any advice for ensuring that joint approach across community and acute?
Do you mind if I take that one?
Yeah, go for it. Absolutely.
So my nickname is Disney. I am all of the joy, all of the sparkle, and that really, really helps cross that divide that can sometimes appear between community and acute. Have open discussions with your colleagues. Don't try and do things on your own by yourself. It's just too big. You need to be jumping into a pool and having a community of like-minded people. So I still I'm in private practice a little bit now, but I still go back to my old social care team and take them biscuits. I still go back to the hospital that I used to work in and I take them biscuits because everyone loves biscuits. And it might seem really silly to say, take someone biscuits and that will help proportionate handed care, but it's having that open communication line. It really, really does super help.
I have to laugh, Kat, because there's nothing in the model that mentions biscuits at all.
I know.
Needs to be
That's
added.
just my personal experience.
No, I suppose the thing is the cultural shift and the approach and the phase it does give. The model does give phases to help the integration, and I suppose that's where we find it really helpful, because it's not like it's only applicable to local authorities or acute. It's a whole system approach, and that's what the whole model is basis on. So yeah, biscuits aren't mentioned, but yes, we'll do like a biscuit. Love that, love it. I also really love your fish and elephant analogy as well. I think I might use that, although I might get mixed up. It's a brilliant analogy. Did you know that elephants can actually swim really well too?
Didn't know that. That's ruined my analogy.
But it doesn't. You wouldn't think so. Just because I like elephants.
Yes, thank you, Heather. A bird and an elephant. I shall change it.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
A good one. Yeah, just the last one there was, has the session been recorded? Yes, it has. So the recording has taken place and it will be sent just with a link in an email afterwards. So that'll be included along with the PowerPoint and presentation slides. So yeah, there's no more questions that I can see there, unless one pops in the next couple of seconds. But no, we're just getting lots of thank yous now. So I think we are good to go. Yep, lots of thank yous. So yeah, I just want to, Norma, is there anything else you want to say before I wrap up? Or is there anything
No,
anyone else
thank you, everyone.
before?
Thank you so much, Kat. Thank you so much, Nick. That was awesome. And thank you, Adele, for hosting as well. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much to everyone who has joined us. It's been great. And obviously, again, thank you to the panel who have been amazing as well. So if there are any questions about anything that maybe you think of afterwards, please just email admin@a1momentum.com and we can help you as much as we can, or we can direct you to Nick or Kat, who will be, I'm sure, very, very glad to answer anything that you might have for them. So yeah, any questions at all, please give us an email, and we just thank you so much for joining us. In the email that you will see today will be an opportunity to register for our March webinar, so please keep an eye out for that as well, and that will be on social media as well. So thank you again, and we will see you again soon. Thanks, everyone.